Be the change in the world that you wish to see and stop complaining, said Aseem Tiwari. A little boy from Kanpur who eventually became an investment banker at the Wall Street went back to India and pursued his career as an assistant director and also as an actor. We have also seen him in films like De Dhanadhan Gol and also I Hate Love Stories. This guy wasn't really happy with what he was doing. Guess what he did next? He followed his dream to Hollywood. He went to LA and pursued his career as an actor. We have seen him in projects like The Circle, Spinsterhood, Luke Cage, and his last film, Normal. And these days I've also heard that he's into writing. So I need to know more about him. Let's welcome my guest tonight, Aseem Tiwari. Aseem, what's up? How are you?
Hold on. You can see I'm not wearing pants on the camera. I'll keep my legs on. It's okay. Don't worry. Let's go.
Fine, right? Okay. So what's up? What's going on?
I'm eating a protein bar in quarantine because I don't know how to cook.
Okay.
Let me just take this down.
No, that's fine.
It's good. This is natural. This is who I am in real life.
So you were telling me because of the timing, I called you 2 hours back. I didn't know because last time I spoke to Sharbari Appa from New York, so I forgot the timing. So you were saying you were on a work call. So do you work from home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, we're all working from home. We're in quarantine in LA. Everyone's working from home, but
Sometimes. So most of the things.
for these days I'm solely focused on writing. So for that I'm at home the most. I'm writing a feature film for India right now, for an Indian studio. So the only thing that I have to really leave the house for is to meet with my co-writer. I have a co-writer that I brought on to write that. We were meeting at his place to write every day until the shutdown happened. I remember the day of the shutdown, I left his apartment coming back home, and they announced a shutdown while I was driving. And a police car pulled me over, asking where I was going. No, it was in March. I think it was March, March maybe 13 or something. Maybe, I don't remember the exact day. Yeah.
So, all right. So, Aseem, what I wanted to tell you is that, of course, we're all now going through this phase. We're all under the same roof, struggling in every sector, any trade, any business. We're all stuck. And especially me being a TV host, an actor, and a performer for so long. I mean, I started realizing the difference from like early March when suddenly all these 3-4 channels that I work for started saying we don't need you for the time being, and we're gonna play your old previous episodes, and we're gonna do some tricks because we're gonna shut down for a month. And I was like, what are they talking about? I was like, all right, fine. And then after a week, I'm like, okay, this is getting serious because the government finally on 18th March said, it's an official lockdown. And then I really, I really started reading, and I figured it out that it's going to take pretty long time, like at least 3 to 6 months. I don't even know how long, maybe a year. I don't know.
Oh, no. I don't think it'll be that long. You think? You think it'll be 3 to 6 months?
I think so. Don't you think? I mean, you guys will know more than me, so tell me. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what's happening in Bangladesh, but in the US, I think it'll be over by June. Things will open up by June. That's a prediction, right? So their prediction was, okay, we'll shut down until maybe end of April to mid-May, and they extended to mid-May, May 15. So even if you add another 15 days, you go to the end of May and open up in June. That's likely what's going to happen. Now, there's some states like LA and New York are very different because it's population density. There's more infection rates here, so we have to be more careful.
Okay, no, but I thought New York is worse. I mean, in terms of...
New York is worse, yeah. Just because it's population density, right? People, everyone takes the subway. LA is more spread out. As you can see, I have space, But yeah, I think places like LA, New York will maybe open up in June, right? But the rest of the country will open up for sure. As in, one state has already announced they're opening on Friday, which is a huge mistake, huge mistake. But they're opening up.
Which state is it?
The state of Georgia, they're opening up on Friday. Yeah, where Atlanta is. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, that's going to be bad.
I was just wondering to have this show where I can have my guests talk about what are they doing, during these days, and also tell us about a little bit about yourself as well. Of course, like people, your friends, your associates in LA who work with you, and also your associates in India. They know you very well, but my audience in Bangladesh might not know. So of course, I know very well. I have read about you last 2 days, and I think you have had a very much of a roller coaster ride. Like from an investment banker to assistant director to an actor. This is amazing. But I'm sure it's you had your own struggles as well. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about how you got here? What's your story like?
Sure, yeah. My story is the most choppy edit you've ever seen in a film. As in, like, I grew up in a city called Kanpur in UP, India, and then I moved to the States when I was young, maybe 11ish, and grew up in the Boston area. Went to school in Boston, then went to New York to be an investment banker. Did that for a few years. Didn't want to do that anymore, so I quit. I tend to make weird decisions. That's who I am. I'm not saying they're the best decisions, but I make them. And then I went to travel. It had always been my dream. I've always liked adventure and things like that. So it was my dream to go and travel. But we didn't grow up with much money. I grew up very like middle class, lower middle class, you know? And then once we moved to the States, we didn't have much because it was just my mom. My dad left, went back to India, and it was just my mom raising us alone. And she hadn't really worked before, so we had a lot of
So
hardship.
how many siblings do you have? How many brothers and sisters?
Just one older brother. But my mom is like, I have like, I'm such a fan of single mothers now because I've seen my mom go through, a woman that was a housewife that had never really worked, thrown into a foreign country with no work experience. She worked hard. She figured out a way to feed her kids and survive. And again, we're very lucky to be in America. It's much easier in America, it really is. Um, so she did that, and then she would go and get her MBA at night. So she was just like around the clock. You and I were texting about, and I told you about working 100 hours a week. I I learned how to really work um, to the human potential, when I was in investment banking. It's very cutthroat, it's very hard. Like you have to work, work, work. I think there's one week I counted. The most I ever worked was 120 hours in one week. So that's just like going home and sleeping for like 2 hours, 3 hours. But it's manageable. You can do it, especially when you're younger. In my 20s, I'm not that young anymore. You can do it when you have that energy. You mentioned war. Like when soldiers are put through that, where they go to war and they don't sleep for more than 2 hours, an hour, and they get through it and they go through it for a long periods of time. But going back to um, the journey of investment banking, my work ethic came from watching my mom, you know and then I like to do weird things. So this whole
Sorry to
like
cut you here. So, Asim, when you
yeah,
decided
yeah,
that, when you told your mom or your brother that, what, I'm done with this. I've worked for like a couple of
yeah,
years. I've made enough money.
4 years, yeah, yeah.
4 years. Money is not what I'm
Mm.
looking for. I need something else. So, what happened after? Like, what happened at that point? Didn't your mom like go crazy or like be like, what the hell are you doing?
No, that's again, I think all my like I would say most of my success that I've had so far is attributed to my mother. Because I reached a certain goal. I was like, okay, grew up with not much money, made some money, can give it to, help the family if they need it, whatever. And she said she immediately saw that I was unhappy doing what I was doing, right? And she saw me unhappy for a couple of years. I did it for 4 years. I was happy for the first two, but I was unhappy for the last two. And she saw that, and she told me, she said, you know what? If something doesn't make you happy, quit. You'll find something else to do. You're capable, right? And if she had not said that to me, I would have never quit. I would have never gone into entertainment ever in my life. I needed that permission, you know? So she gave me that okay.
And that
I did it.
confidence that, I'm there, just like, go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I lived out my dream of, just strapping. It was supposed to be a year. Yeah. My plans always go off plan. Um, so I went to travel, went to Europe, and I was making sure this camera is rolling. Okay. I was not just traveling, but climbing mountains. Because I get bored of just doing like oh, I'll go see sights, whatever. It's fine, but then you have to do things. At least I do, right? Traveling and seeing sights is fun for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 1 month, but not for a year, 6 months, right? So I set goals for myself. I trained 3 months to climb mountains. So I went and climbed uh, Kilimanjaro in Africa. And I did that. I almost died there. That's a whole different episode. Um, and then from there, I was going over to India, and I had a ticket that took me around the world. From It took me from the East Coast around the world back to America.
Wow.
But I once I landed up in India, I was climbing mountains in Ladakh. Right, I was in Kashmir, Srinagar, then traveled across Ladakh, over to the China border, down through the mountains, and I went to my hometown to surprise my grandmother, who had a big part in raising me when I was in Kanpur. Right, just so happened my grandmother died the morning I arrived. And it was like I had like a couple of days notice. I called my dad saying, hey, I'm going to surprise Amma and come see her. And he said, you better come fast because she's in the hospital, she's not doing well. So I got there, and she died the morning I got there. So here's how it leads to the story. I had I had an uncle who's been in entertainment doing like not so much films, but he's been doing like commercials, advertising for like a long time, like 25, 30 years. Um, so he came to the theory that happens funeral, right? In Kanpur. And he was like, hey, what are you doing with your life? Because he had encouraged me to work in film before. And I was like, no, I'm going to be an investment banker. I'm okay, right? So this time he said, what are you doing with your life? I said, nothing. I have a backpack and that's it. So he said, come to Bombay. And he said, I'm making my first like film, feature film. So I said, okay, why not? Let's go party, right? So I was that like, the nephew of the film person, right? Just kind of hanging out and going to parties and having a good time, right? But again, I get bored very quickly. So I did that for like a month, less than a month, I would say. And then
So you started shooting right away, like for that film?
no. I was just hanging out. I was staying in his house, hanging out, going to film parties, meeting people, just like having a good time. I had no plan of staying there, none. I thought I'd come back to America, maybe start a company, maybe do venture capital, something like that, right? Um, so once I went to a film set, like I was like doing parties and this and that, but once I went to a film set, I fell in love immediately.
So this was the
I
first
fell in love.
time you went to a film set. Any. So
Yeah.
before that, you didn't go
Yes.
anywhere like that in US, in New York.
No.
Okay. How old were you then when you went to the film set for the first time?